everybody. This is JonPaulPrime. This is going to be my second interview with Amendum. So in our last interview, some people took issue with the way you characterized the Occupy movement. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, well, what is there to comment on, right? Are they going to loaf around in the park again this summer? I mean, it's over. It has no agenda. It's not offering any practical solution. So it's done. It's over.
Well, some users, to be serious, in particular, seemed offended by your notion that the Occupy movement wasn't accomplishing anything.
Yeah, well, I just don't see any evidence of the accomplishment. Where's the political evidence of it? We don't even have a candidate running against Obama. So, I don't think. Well, but I got Roseanne Barr, right? Does that have a realistic chance?
I don't want to get too much into personal drama. We didn't last time. I won't this time either. But anybody who's been watching your videos over the years knows you've clashed repeatedly with To Be Serious. What is the primary bone of contention between the two of you, and do you see any hope of reconciliation?
No. I think she's an incredibly elitist, pretentious person, and I think she's got a personality that's needy. She needs this. She needs to prove herself, prove she's defending the cause of women intellectuality, and but you can go into this stuff forever. But I'm not going to go into I'm not going to resuscitate all the lies and the bullshit that has gone on, and all at her creation. I committed no crime against anyone. I voiced my opinion. I didn't shove it down anyone's throat. I didn't force anybody to believe anything. I didn't extort anybody on the internet. It's just bullshit. You can't say bitch on the internet? Well, come on.
Well, another thing about that last interview we did, some people seem to think we're okay with the idea of violent revolution.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with the idea of violent driving the Earth train right into the sun. So yeah, I'm theoretically, I think the whole thing is fail. I don't think human beings are going to do anything in any kind of constructive manner. They're going to fail at this whole experiment. They're going to make it even worse than it is now. And I'm for trying to suffocate the monster. Kill it hard and fast. If you want to make change in this world, you're going to have to force it. The people aren't going to just. It's like antinatalism. Being an antinatalist is absolutely pointless. It's like being a non-rapist. Okay, if you're not out there stopping the rapists, if you're not out there passing laws against rape, you're not accomplishing anything. Saying you're not going to rape should be, step one for anybody who's rational. And anybody who's rational can see that the human race will not be able to control the fanatics and the idiots and the loopy tunes. You're going to have to force somebody to play along in the end. There's always going to be a definition of a crime, an excess, an abuse of the system. And you can't just, it's like you can't just voluntarily put a big pile of money out in the middle of the floor and say, well, now only the people who really need it should take that money. You know what's going to happen is everybody's going to think they need it.
Well, after our last interview, people were putting up pictures of, the terror in France. I thought it was kind of silly.
Yeah, well, there's people who just do stuff because they're in a competition, and you hurt their feelings, and so they're going to try to hurt you back in some way. So most of it's just petty bullshit. It doesn't have anything to do with anything real or philosophical. Nothing with any integrity. It's just petty crap. Like, let's see if we can throw some mud at his character in some stupid, idiotic way.
Well, can you see and you talk a lot about change sometimes being driven by sets of circumstances that you can't really repeat, but can you see a perfect storm of circumstances where things get so bad here in America that people actually do consider picking up pitchforks and rioting?
Yeah, I can envision lots of scenarios, and it's irritating because I would like to be able to nail it down. You know, you'd like to be able to figure out when the, you know, on paper, theoretically, it's like you could argue that if you look back at 1929, you'd say, well, how could these people not see it coming? How could they not have predicted it in 1928? I mean, it was all there right in front of them. How could they miss it? And I almost feel like we're in the same position. Like, how are we missing this? You know, we have all the evidence of this unsustainable, chaotic world. I mean, we're now fighting wars where we just go into another country, we pay some people to call themselves rebels, you know, and then we'll blow up a whole entire country's infrastructure because 10 people are unhappy, and then steal all the money. I mean, these are ludicrous things happening, and a Democratic president is committing these crimes, and you're just like, well, I guess that's the writing on the wall, isn't it? I mean, isn't this whole thing fucked? I mean, so yeah, how do you fix something this fucked?
Have you been paying attention at all to what's been happening with Greece and the austerity measures? You think that's going to happen here eventually?
Yeah, well, eventually, you can't just keep printing the money. So, and that's where we're basically at. The government's issued a ton of bonds. It can't possibly reissue. You know, it can't pay them back. So, yeah, it's going to have to start printing cash to buy its own bonds because no one's going to want them, especially at the forced low interest rates. No one's going to want to buy one of these stupid pieces of paper in the future. So there's no prospect of the government financing itself unless it does some substantial tax raising, which it appears to have no will to do, and people have no will to do. So, you know, if you're going to, like I said, that's how you know the revolution isn't going to happen. Is you people can't even figure out that the rich people have all the fucking money. You can explain it to them. They have all the money. They have all the IOUs. You're renting your life from them, you idiots. The Chinese have $2 trillion of your debt. Who has the other 12 trillion, idiots? Oh, that's right, those rich guys in America. Jerk.
So, I mean, is there any way to stop the global financial system from melting down? Is it melting down right now?
Well, I mean, melting down is a tricky word, but I mean, look, the bottom line is there's a certain number of productive assets in the world. There's a certain number of people employed doing productive work, making productive things, and there's a certain amount of value already made. There's a certain number of houses, and there's a certain amount of infrastructure and roads and all that kind of stuff. And there's a certain amount of money you got to spend to maintain the stuff that you already have. And that's the game we're in. That's the only part that really matters. And all this finance crap has been built on top of that. So basically we have a system. Let's say all the houses and all the roads and all the industry is the pie. And the rich are claiming to have 3 or 4 IOUs on every piece of that pie. So, yeah, obviously if everybody tries to collect on those IOUs, if you want your pension to be real, you know, the pensioners, and if they want all these other things in the future to be real, well, somebody's IOUs is going to have to turn into crap. And the choice is you either turn the ultimate, the mega rich, you either knock them down to only 2 or 3 Lamborghinis, or it's going to come out of your pocket somehow. They're going to take your house. They're going to take their property back.
You talk a lot about debt being a big problem, isn't that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that I talk about it. I mean, it's been talked about, you know, my entire life almost. It sort of was an issue in 1980 when Ronald Reagan got elected because everybody was saying, well, how are you going to pay these bills if you're cutting the taxes? And, you know, the plan was they're going to, well, where you cut taxes, it raises revenue. Well, yeah, it does the first year because you just gave everybody a credit card, so everybody spent money, so everybody made more money because you spent more money. But obviously you have to pay it back, and that's the problem.
Well, I mean, you say you've been worried about it most of your life, and around 1980 you were worried about it, but take yourself back to 2000 when everybody was so happy-go-lucky about the balanced budget and surplus. Did you think things were...
Well, it was a joke then. I mean, it was a joke then because you knew it was all made out of this fake wealth. It was all made out of stock market profits that were all being financed by deficit spending. I mean, if you throw $2 trillion into the economy, or $1 trillion a year back then, or even 500 billion, it's a stimulus, okay? And where does the stimulus go? Where does all the money ultimately go? It goes to the stock market. All right? So when they do something for anybody, when they spend any money into the economy, the government, without financing it, without taxing for it, they're basically just saying, let's put more money into the economy. And so the stock market goes up. That's what happens when you spend money you don't have. The stock market goes up. And so it's all fake money. It's not based on anything real. It's based on debt.
So in 2000, you weren't thinking, wow, they finally managed to get our house in financial order, our financial house in order after all?
Well, yeah, but I knew it was all made out of just the fact that revenues had increased because the mega rich were getting mega richer. Okay, that's all it was made out of. Is the filthy rich were getting, their wealth was growing even faster. And so the government actually was collecting more revenue because the mega rich were getting mega richer. So yeah, how long can that last? How long can the rich keep getting richer before you don't have any ownership of your country anymore? They can't. The only way they gain wealth is to gain a claim against your property, your country. You have to mortgage your life in some way or another, either through the government or through your own personal indebtedness. And that's what people have done. They've personally overspent, and then as a country, we've mortgaged our life to the rich. And so you don't own anything. You owe hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's almost like the rich, the 1%, whatever you want to call them. They kind of created a house of cards with our labor and convinced us to on those cards.
Well, you can't even say they created it because the people created it. They've been voting for presidents. They've been voting for people who said, I'm going to cut your taxes. All right? They keep voting for that like it works, like that's a good plan. Like that's how you pay the bills is by saying, let's not pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can't be any less conspiratorial in terms of the fact that people have just voted for it willfully. If a candidate runs and says, I'm going to raise taxes, he's going to lose.
Now, there's the national and the federal deficit, though. Is that correct?
Huh?
The federal deficit is the yearly rates of increase, right? And the national debt is just the overall,
Right.
I guess, mortgage.
And there's a few trillion hidden in the amount of money the Fed has lent out in little things, and the little bank bailout and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So you could have another $5 trillion in there that's not on the books. But yeah, there's 14 trillion in official debt, and we're now pumping out at least a trillion and a half debt more every year.
National debt in and of itself is not a bad thing. I mean, the idea of trying to pay the national debt off is just kind of ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, the creation of it is ridiculous. It's just inflationary. There's no value in it. There's no functional purpose in a country mortgaging itself. Okay, because it doesn't ever pay the bill. If it paid the bill, it might make sense for a short term stimulus and all that kind of stuff, get you through the hard times. But in the good times, nobody wants to pay the bills. So it's completely unproductive. It's a zero-sum game. You cannot win by borrowing money.
But we've always had that from the very beginning, though, right?
Well, we've always had disaster. Yeah, we just keep walking off the same plank, okay? I mean, you can go back through history, and you go look back through history, and about every 80 years, you have a complete financial meltdown.
Yeah, that's a good point. Going back to 2000 briefly again, a lot of people blame Ralph Nader for helping George Bush get elected then. Were you a Nader supporter in 2000?
No, I thought he was an asshole. He should have used his political capital to make a deal with the Democrats. He should have bargained for policy. He should have said, "Look, I'll get out of the race if you give me a guarantee that the Congress will vote on these 3 or 4 bills." And instead, he said, "Do this. Do these 50 things. I demand you do this, or else I'm not going to get out of the race." And he asked for way too much. He was just a jackass for his own damn ego. So yeah, I mean, he knew exactly what he was doing, and he kept saying there's not a dime's worth of difference. Well, God damn it, there's not a dime's worth of difference between Obama and Bush, but there was a hell of a difference between Gore and Bush.
Right. Well, I think, a lot of people forget how things were in 2000. I mean, it was a strange time. You had 8 years of Bill Clinton, and a lot of people on the left were thinking, we're not very satisfied with what Clinton did.
Yeah, well, I don't see, like I said, I don't see how Nader was an answer to that. Just as a pragmatist, I'm still going to say that unless you're giving up altogether, you've got to vote for the lesser evil until we get instant runoff voting. All right, but now, I mean, Obama has been such a trespass, such a whatever the word is, traitor, such a fucking traitor to everything. He's just the biggest liar that's ever been president of the United States. But it's just screw it, fuck the Democratic Party. Democratic Party can eat shit and die, as far as I care. I've been screwed for the last time, the lying scumbags.
But I mean, that's what a lot of Democrats who went to Nader were saying in 2000, basically, though, too, right? The Democratic Party can get fucked.
Well, I'm just saying, the crime wasn't nearly as egregious, was it? I mean, Bill Clinton wasn't great, but hell, he was no fucking Obama.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you made a video about it, but as you know, Steve Jobs died a few months ago. What was your opinion of the founder of Apple? Did he make the world a better place?
Oh, hell no. No, I hated Gates, and I hated Jobs, and I hated the whole fact that we left one of these basic pieces of infrastructure, social infrastructure, the internet and computer technology, and we gave it to these fucking capitalist whore, pig, slob, motherfucking bastards. We should have had standards. It all should have been open source from the very beginning. These jackasses should never have been able to allowed to be owned to copyright a standard. It would be as idiotic as somebody going back in time and giving somebody a copyright on the wheel, and for all of us to be paying a wheel tax to some fucking greedy capitalist pig shit fucker. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates are evil bastards who have stifled and corroded and corrupted human progress to disgusting proportions. The waste they have created in their lousy, greedy, scheming, the whole mechanism of their. It's like the selling of the printer for $10 and you sell the ink cartridges for $600. I mean, it's this upside down, insidious, disgusting chicanery that these corporations are just the antithesis of. Or I mean, no, that they're a perfect description of. And then Google, you could put right there is the cherry on that toxic waste pie. And but again, what do you have? The majority of people think these fuckers have done us some good. These fucking bastard capitalist, whore, greedy bastard corporations have somehow benefited us all. No, they have fucking stolen the value of this technology. They've stolen billions and billions and billions of hours of human life because of the waste they allowed to own the internet.
Yeah, people on the right tend to hold Jobs up as like a role model of everything that's good about America.
Well, people on the left do it too. That's why the Democratic Party can go fuck itself, as it thinks these assholes have done us some good too. These whatever the, well, anyway, I won't get into it.
Okay.
But fuck them.
Well, in terms of the products themselves, I mean, do you agree with popular perceptions that Jobs cared more about the quality of his products than Bill Gates did?
No, whatever. Bill Gates was selling a completely different thing. Bill Gates was selling an operating system that had 10,000 pieces of brilliant software that ran on top of it. Bill Gates didn't make fucking hardware. IBM made the PC, and IBM was the one that accidentally on purpose, but whatever the reason is, the one that allowed there to be open standards. That's why PCs cost half as much, is because you weren't paying a jobs tax for every chip in the damn computer, and for every connector, and every wire had to have its own special Apple connector, a special Apple standard, so it's not compatible with anything else on planet Earth, but something you buy from Jobs.
What's interesting about who actually gets rich off this stuff and who doesn't, like Bill Gates he didn't create DOS. Somebody did, and he used it.
Well, Bill Gates sold, he snookered IBM. Okay, so that's all Bill Gates did. That was his only accomplishment. That's what made Microsoft what it was. He sold a rental contract to IBM. IBM didn't think PCs were going to sell. They didn't think there was any real prospect in it. So they decided they were too stupid to send a guy out to actually develop an operating system. So Bill Gates showed up and said, "Well, look, just pay me $5 a copy, and you can have it, and then you don't have to worry about it. I'll take care of it." And so he signed a rental agreement. He rented an operating system to IBM. So IBM could have bought the whole thing for $200,000, and instead they paid whatever, $500 billion.
Yeah, but I mean, the guy who actually wrote DOS, he's pretty much forgotten.
Well, I know. Well, Bill Gates snookered him too. Bill Gates knew that IBM wanted an operating system. Bill Gates played middleman. That's what all these scumbag entrepreneurs are. Isn't that what an entrepreneur is? Is a fucking middleman who just figures out a scheme to sell something to one guy that somebody else is making, and instead of just showing the two guys how to get together, he takes a cut, a big giant cut, and that's all Bill Gates did. Okay, he just showed IBM this guy has the operating system, right? So Bill Gates screwed both. He screwed the guy who wrote the operating system, and he screwed IBM. Because, the simple solution was for the guy just to sell the damn operating system directly to IBM. But instead, Bill Gates took a $500 billion tax on it that we all had to pay. We're still paying for it. Because he gets to copyright the fucking infrastructure of a computer system. He gets to own a copyright to the wheel.
Well, that sort of thing, I think, in genetics technology, I think people are trying to copyright certain, like genes and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, all these scientists, they're all turned into a bunch of capitalist whores. It's the mentality of the basic human animal. They all fucking suck. Yeah, what do you want me to say? There's more evidence of just why human beings suck, why there's nothing to save on this planet. It's all fail. The smartest thing on this planet, all they do with their goddamn brains is to scheme, to figure out some way where they can take advantage.
Well, let me ask you this. Are there any internet tycoons that you actually like? Because I know you corresponded with the founder of Wikipedia before Wikipedia became big. What was the nature of that correspondence, and how did it start?
Yeah, well, it was the nature was is back in the day there was all kinds of 10, 12 years ago, whatever. There was lots of conversation about how the internet should be indexed, and Wikipedia was an idea of how to organize information. So Wikipedia came up in a conversation that was different individuals were having. Even the Bernard Lee guy who invented HTML was in on it, because he had this idea of a semantic web, where copyright would be in the everything would have a legacy. So everything on the internet would have a legacy. So you always knew where its origin was, which wasn't a bad idea either. But it's all part of this whole thing. Well, anyway, so Wikipedia came up as a way of running a directory where you could have volunteers who would basically index the internet. And you would have this scrutiny, from the outside world would be able to scrutinize the quality of the indexing and all of that stuff. And frankly, I was sort of against that because I had my own ideas about how it should be done. But we were friendly, in terms of just exchanging ideas about why one way is better than another way, that kind of thing.
Well, considering your interest in electronics, did you ever consider working with computers as a career at any point?
Yeah, well, there's no money in working in computers unless you're going to work as a sinister, rotten, lousy, crappy, shitty shyster. I mean, the only money to be made on the internet is as a shyster.
But I mean, I'd be correct in assuming you could acquire a degree in computer science with relatively little difficulty, right?
I don't know. Could I have? I don't know. I didn't go out and try, but as a practical matter, I've acquired a knowledge of different aspects of computer technology. So yeah, I know more about some stuff than others, but I have through life experience, I've certainly gleaned, a lot of knowledge of, both, structure and both, hidden and obvious parts of computer technology.
So it's 2012. While we're on the subject of electronics, popular mechanics, let me ask you, let's talk about some of the things we should have been able to do by now. Like, I've gleaned from your conversations with Pyro and Stickham that you're something of a car collector, and you're definitely interested in cars. So, and this is a serious question, it's not a joke. Why don't we have a car yet that doesn't require wings?
Well, because it takes a lot of fuel, first off. There's no physics that's going to be to your benefit of, trying to fly something heavy through the air, obviously. I mean, and they do have it to an extent. I mean, they do have different, they're getting there, but why would you even want them to get there? I mean, there's no vision of how you're going to, or, you can't keep people out of trouble when they're on the ground. You want to throw more junk in the air flying around?
I've seen a prototype that has a plastic body, and it's supposed to fly on 4 ducted fans powered by 150 horsepower rotary engines. Does that sound aerodynamically feasible to you?
Well, whether something's aerodynamical, feasible, like I said, it's still a huge amount of wasted energy. I mean, it's just not efficient. So how is that compatible with limited resource future that we're stuck in? You're not going to get from here to there more efficiently flying in the air.
Mm-hmm. But damn, it's 2012, you'd think. I mean, a gadget that I've always wanted is yet to materialize. You'd think we'd have it by now, like, say, a Dick Tracy watch. Basically everything an iPhone can do shrunk down to the size of a wristwatch. We don't even have that yet.
Well, man, you're really picky. What wasn't it silly from the start, though? I mean, really, I saw Dick Tracy and I was like, well, this is stupid. He's flying in a garbage can and he's talking to a watch. I mean, what? Is that my dream future? No. I want to know why we don't have, whatever, wanky, spanky machines on our computers. Why we don't have virtual reality. I mean, why can't I reach through my computer and touch someone, quite literally? That's the question I have. Where's that technology? Because that's damn doable. Flying garbage cans is a little more complicated.
Yeah, but the wristwatch thing seems like it wouldn't be that complicated. No.
Well, I mean, aren't we there? I mean, we're 10 days away from that. So what are you complaining
like a gas
about?
Pump with 4,000
What the hell
holes
is that?
in the hose. That's what
Sorry.
life is. Oh yeah, fill her up. Yeah. Yeah.
This is my computer.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Grotesquely rude.
What the hell is that? Sorry, I gotta wait till this stupid thing ends.
Of love and beauty, those concepts.
One of my
are
old videos
completely
playing because, you know, I have to run a script to maintain my website, so it's running on the computer all the time. And sometimes it plays people's autoplays.
okay.
So it's okay now.
Okay, well, I mean, you said the whole energy thing, the fuel thing. Do you see hydrogen-powered cars ever being mass-produced?
What kind of cars?
Hydrogen.
Well, I don't think hydrogen's an answer. First off, I mean, you got to make costs money to create your hydrogen in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So, where are you going to get the energy to make your hydrogen? And then, these technologies are dangerous. So I don't know if we want people to have more, BTUs available to them. Energy units stored in their cars, because what are they going to do with that potential? I mean, you're just going to make it easier for people to blow buildings up. So
the idea of the only exhaust being water is kind of nice with the hydrogen thing.
Well, I know, but obviously if you're using coal to make your hydrogen, then your exhaust isn't just water.
Well, ideally, what kind of car would you like to see? Electric?
Well, I just think we ought to have make life more practical. So yeah, I think we should be living in cities that are, built entirely differently with, no modern. We shouldn't be making houses the way we're still making them. It should almost be illegal in America to have a north-facing window. These are just basic things. I mean, the R value on a window is 3. That's if you have a good window, a good insulated window. You got an R value of 3. A wall has an R value of 35. So, do the math. The waste that we are, there's just gross waste. But, all this moving of people is not the game. I think that the game is to move the goods to the people, not to move people to the goods. So I envision rational civilization should almost be you get everywhere you need to go on a conveyor belt.
You're talking about houses being building codes and the like. It's pretty difficult, though, to get off the grid, so to speak, isn't it? I mean,
well, I'm saying you got to be off the grid. You just got to be. There's all kinds of efficiencies we can build now that are very cost effective. I mean, there's 2 ways to solve the problem. I mean, either you come up with an alternative energy source, or you use less energy.
I see people doing little things. I don't know how much it's helping. Like, some people will attach little windmills to their house. What is your opinion on, like, wind power and stuff like that? A lot of people say even if we harness it, the way the grid is now, we can't really hook into the existing grid with wind power.
Yeah, well, it is a problem. Like I said, where the way people are located is a problem. So I'm just saying I would sort of migrate to a new kind of life. So I would migrate us to maybe cities that only have electric cars in them, and a whole different way of producing and using energy. But yeah, I almost say that the money you're going to need to spend. I mean, they might try working harder on coming up with the cold fusion thing or something. I mean, come up with a go for I mean, it's always hard to say. Like, what do you do to cure? What do you do about the problem of malaria? Do you buy everybody a net, or do you try to kill the disease? Do you try to wipe out the disease? Do you try for the cure, or do you treat the symptoms? And it's always a difficult question. But, I'm sort of fall on the side of all these little technologies are minor replacements for the power of oil. So, I mean, maybe they can come up with a better way. Maybe they can come up with a way to do clean coal that's really clean. Maybe. Because there is a lot of coal still in the ground.
Now, a lot of people will say that there's really no such thing as clean coal.
Well, I'm just saying, how can you say there's no such thing? That would be idiotic. Right now there's no such thing because the scrubbers are more expensive, or too expensive. It's too expensive to clean the coal for it to be, a practical energy source clean. So the only way it's practical is dirty. But I'm just saying, it's just a technical problem, right? I mean, it's like, taking the salt out of seawater. There is a technology out there that's going to do that, at a penny a gallon. And once that technology is found, I mean, it's just going to be a huge boom to, water resource problems.
Now, we already do have desalination, don't we?
Yeah, it's expensive, though.
Right. It really seemed like we were moving in the right direction back in the late 70s. When the energy crisis was going on, it was like we were being forced to take alternatives seriously. And then at a certain point in the early 80s, that all stopped.
Yeah, I don't know if those numbers are exactly right. I mean, I don't think people understood the energy crisis quite as well. They just understood the Arab crisis in the 70s,
But do you remember gas lines at the gas stations back then?
Yeah, well, I know, but we know why that was, though, right? That was just because we were being terrorized by the Arabs. They were, refusing to play civilization games, and partly for a good reason. I mean, we asked for it with the whole Shah of Iran crap and all that kind of bullshit. But that's all that was. That was just a period of extortion. You knew that wasn't going to be life forever.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Carter, and I think he, for the most part, looked positively on his 4 years. He had the solar panels put on the White House. That was a nice gesture. He gave that, I don't know if you remember that speech he gave, trying to, like a pep talk for the nation. Did you think that was a good speech?
Well, look, I'm not going to give Carter all that much credit, but let's understand that the guy who ran against Carter in the primary was Jerry Brown, all right? And, he had the nickname Moonbeam, but Jerry Brown is the guy who brought that agenda, the futuristic, green agenda. So, what Carter would have done if Brown hadn't forced that issue is a whole nother question.
I wasn't aware of that. You mean the former governor of California?
Yeah. Yeah, he ran for president against Carter.
I was not aware of that. That's interesting. I remember he ran in '92 against Clinton and lost too. So.
Yeah, well, he did it on a no money kind of campaign, so he didn't have much of a chance then. But he had actual, he was realistically, realistic is a tricky word, because he wasn't married, he was dating Linda Ronstadt. I mean, he had, this would have been a really unlikely presidential victory for a conservative, still really conservative country.
And indeed, Carter only just barely defeated Ford, if I remember correctly. It was a very close election.
Yeah, I mean, Carter wasn't, this was a southern, state, governor. I mean, all that stuff seemed like huge liabilities back then.
But everybody wanted to get rid of the Republican because of the whole Watergate thing. So.
Yeah, but everybody was a little bit afraid of Carter, blah, blah, blah. He was, he was also a, Christian, born again.
Yeah. And if the whole Arab thing hadn't happened, he probably would have been reelected in 1980.
Well, it's hard to say. Those were weird economic times anyway. There was a real, it started with Nixon. The economy was already in trouble back then. And, it was one of those hard recessions. So, hard to say if, Carter had a lot of liabilities without the Arab trouble.
Yeah. I mean, the economy is it's always going up and down. I remember, I was just a little kid, but the first couple of years of Reagan's presidency, nobody thought he was going to be reelected because everybody was out of work. Things were horrible. And
yeah, well, part of the problem is nobody ran against him, right? Mondale, who I think he's an honorable guy, but he wasn't Mr. Charisma.
Yeah.
It's very hard to run against a guy like Reagan, good talker, looks good, all that kind of crap, and you got this Mondale guy, and what is Mondale saying? Well, we got these huge deficits. I'm going to raise your taxes. Nobody wanted to hear that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that took guts, and nobody has set that since. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, I got a whole other set of questions, but I didn't really have the time to prepare them yet. So if we can continue this in another session, that'd be great.
All right.
I'm sorry this was so long in coming.
It's all right. I'm not doing anything perfect lately either, so a little flawed is human, right? A lot
right.
Flawed isn't, but a little flawed. We're allowed to be a little flawed.
How's things coming with your website?
Yeah, whatever. It's there. It's a website, right?
Is the thing with the pyro thing?
Yeah, well, we're working on it. It's just little logistic stuff. I mean, a guy, there's a certain guy I was going to get to get the machine and blah blah blah, and well, whatever. It's just little details, technical things that always get in the way.
Right.
But it'll get done eventually. But it's not going to change anything dramatically until we come up with mechanisms that make this whole idea of having conversation meaningful to people. Because most people just couldn't give a rat's ass. I mean, they just want to tweet about bullshit.
Well, I think you've left a pretty good legacy on YouTube. You've been on for a few years now, and
yeah, I know, but look at the stagnation of it, though. I mean, I basically acquired an audience, and maybe it grows, by 10% a year or some other stupid number. But quite obviously, it hasn't done what other people who were in my position did. You know what I'm saying? Who I started off in parody with, because I'm not saying what people want to hear, and or else I'm just not very personable, or I'm not something. Well, I'm just saying this. Obviously, I'm not something. If I was a TV show, and the networks controlled me, I would be canceled, right? Because I'm not getting the ratings.
Well, I mean, to a degree, you consider people like the Amazing Atheist essentially to be a sellout, right?
Well, he is what people want, and that's the sad, tragic truth of it. So, yeah, whether he's a sellout or not, I mean, I think he's obviously a human of, almost despicable character. But that's what people admire. They admire
I wonder,
takers
really...
and thieves and crooks. I mean, that's again. I will go back to the argument. There's just so little beauty and grace left in the human race. There's so little to like about humanity that I almost find it laughable that there's so many people that has to come running to the defense of the human race, like there's something here worth preserving.
I think a lot of the beauty and grace, though, is they tend to not be on the internet. They tend to not be putting themselves out there. It's the people you encounter in real life.
Yeah, well, I don't think that. I think you do see it in real life. That you just see how superficial and how full of shit most people are. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they just keep pretending they do.
Well, I mean, TJ, I think a lot of it's an act. A lot of his despicableness. He's playing a character.
Oh, I don't think so. I think well, whatever. I don't think he's that good an actor.
Well, you guys used to talk. I mean, you used to have dialogues with him.
I don't think I don't, dialogue isn't the kind of thing I do anyway. So I don't even know what that would be. What would a dialogue be like? I don't think I've had a dialogue with him. I've had arguments with him.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't even been, the substance of those arguments were garbage. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that he is, obviously, young people, that's his audience, let's call it that, what it is, gravitate to human beings who are basically just takers, who are successfully just taking, and they admire it. I mean, look at the entire YouTube. What on YouTube is of any value? Name me somebody who gets 500,000 views or even 100,000 that has any real value.
Right. I can't right off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying it's all tripe, silly stuff. I'll put panties on my head. I'll dress up as a banana. I mean, come on. It's just...
Well, I mean, there are people trying to be genuine. I know you have your problems with Pyro, but he's a pretty genuine guy. He's trying to do the right thing.
Well, I'm just saying, Pyro gets less views than I do, so I wouldn't doubt his genuineness. I just have, my problems are with his skirting of the truth.
Him defending things that you think are indefensible.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's doing the average human thing. He's trying to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And well, go ahead and do that, but don't do it with stuff you just make up. I mean, don't do it with a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, your primary disagreement with him probably is the whole procreation thing. He likes to think of it as gambling. I used that term once. I'm gambling with my own living tissue.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he thinks it's, that somehow it's his game to play just because nature handed him the dice, and so that's all he needs. That's the only authority he needs. He doesn't have to worry about a driver's license or, a right. But yeah, I mean, that's just a rationalization, obviously. I mean, when you start turning other people into your tissue, that's just silly. I mean, I'm going to punch my father in the face if he calls me his tissue.
Yeah. Well, on paper, obviously, the antinatalist position is correct. I mean, you shouldn't subject anyone to Russian roulette. And even with all our advances in technology, there's still the Russian roulette aspect, maybe just with less bullets in the gun now.
Yeah, well, especially if you have nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing that you can demonstrate how we service a need in the universe. You know what I'm saying? We don't itch a scratch. We don't heal a wound. We don't fix a fuel leak. There's nothing. We're not corking a single hole. We're not doing anything the universe needs to have done. So it is that obvious. I mean, the universe is not missing the Martians. It's not missing the Saturnites. It's not missing the Plutonians. The universe isn't deprivated because none of those civilizations exist. Just as it would not be deprivated if we didn't exist.
Yeah, I've heard you say that a lot about the universe doesn't need us, but I'm not really sure exactly what that means.
Well, I just mean that everything of value that we can come up with always has to do with making something happy or making it feel better or making, you know what I'm saying? Isn't it? I mean, you can't really have a positive thing happen if it doesn't take away a negative or create what somebody might call joy or happiness or fun or wonder or something. Well, we don't do that, right? We don't function in the universe that way. There is no sense of humor the universe needs tickled. There is no, I need to get something done. The universe doesn't have an agenda. We can't pave the road for it. We can't drive it to the store. We can't do anything. We create needs. We create problems that need solving. We can clean up our own poop and vomit, but there's no janitorial duty for us to accomplish out in the universe.
So your take on do you agree with string theory basically, or you have your own theory?
Yeah, well, string theory is just, I believe I like the idea of lengthening quanta. Saying that say an electron, visualizing it as something that could, if you put it into baseball-sized terms, that an electron would be 1,000,000 baseballs tied together. Okay, and that would be an electron. So it would have 1,000,000 quanta in it. It probably has 1,000,000,000 quanta, but I'm just saying, and the idea that the length of that electron is what ties cells together. So you can theoretically think about it like, oh yeah, if you had a really long string and the electron was being shared by two atoms, you could see how it would tie them together because the string would tie them together. Okay, the idea of the bonds between the quanta is what's holding the atom together. And so I would say that's the weak force in nuclear physics, is the force of the attraction between quanta. And but anyway, I'm just saying that's as far as I go with string theory, though. String theory is it has a whole other agenda that I don't think is really tied to quantum. Okay, it sounds a little bit like silly string theory. I mean, it's the multi-dimensional crap. It's got a whole bunch of crap that I don't see any reason to inject into the situation. But yeah, I got to work on all that stuff. I mean, I do have some ideas regarding physics and models of the underlying universe.
And like gravity, how well do you think we really understand the nature of gravity?
Well, I don't think we understand it at all, obviously, but it is understanding this idea that there is just this, like I said, I have this theory that you could visualize the universe as just being made up of little tiny bits all moving at the speed of light, and that there's nothing else in the universe. There's just these little bits, and the only thing that stops them is a gravity well. The only thing that captures them is a gravity well. So they have to fall into something to be stopped from moving at the speed of light in a direction. And so atoms are formed by capturing these things moving at the speed of light and causing them to spin in a circle, right? To just orbit forever. And that's how energy is consolidated, is it gets trapped in these gravity wells. So I guess I would argue that the gravity that a planet is experiencing is really just an extension of the gravity wells that are combining, if you add up all the nuclear gravity wells.
But you agree with like Einstein's fabric space-time thing? Yeah,
well, and obviously it functions differently on the quantum level because there's standard orbits and all this other stuff, but yeah, I think it's there. I think it's there to be had in terms of defining a staircase theory of energy. You can see it in the periodic table, this obvious addition of one more electron and one more electron, and you just keep making these bigger and bigger elements, and there's limitations to how big they can get. And yeah, it just seems like it's right there. To me, there's a model that can be described that just has to do with these two entities. Okay, quanta moving at the speed of light, and so all bigger things anything bigger than a quanta, like a photon or an electron, is just a school of quanta. So you can think of it as a school of fish. All the individual fish, if the school is moving at 50 miles an hour, each of the individual fish is moving at 50 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what the real that's what the real mechanism is. The energy comes from the fish. It doesn't come from the school. And the energy of the universe is caught up in these quanta, not in electrons, not in atoms, not in elements or chemistry. It's all quanta that are just in different configurations of movement, and they're all doing one thing, and that is traveling at the speed of light in a direction until they're captured by a gravity well. So there's only two things: there's this movement and gravity wells.
Gravity well. So, how would black holes factor into that? Gravity wells.
Well, if they existed, I mean, you can argue that, yeah, that's, very. It's a consolidation of gravity wells. So yeah, I mean, if you have enough gravity wells, like I don't know, if you physically could make a sun, like our sun is 1,000 times bigger than certain other suns in the universe, and 1,000 times smaller than the biggest stars in the universe, right?
Right.
I mean, some sort of number like that. Well, what if you made it 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000? So what if you made a sun the size of, a galaxy? Maybe it would create a black hole, right?
The big asteroid or comet that killed the dinosaurs.
Well, it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty plausible. The radioactive evidence seems good. The clay evidence seems good. A lot of stuff fit together. So I say, why not? It's as good as any other theory. But I'm opposed to some guy telling me it was a virus. Okay, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's been several extinctions, going back in Earth's history.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it killed big things, so